They say the Vikings were warriors of unmatched fury, conquerors of land, sea, and flesh. But among all their tales of battle and glory, one stands apart. Darker, crueler, almost inhuman. It was called the Blood Eagle, a ritual so horrifying, some historians refuse to believe it ever happened. Yet, the sagas remember, and the victims did not live to forget. According to Norse legends, the Blood Eagle was a punishment, not just for betrayal, but for insult to blood and honor. The condemned was bound, face down or kneeling, their back exposed to the cold air. Then, the executioner would carve through the skin and muscle, right down to the spine. The ribs were broken one by one and pulled outward like the wings of a great bird. Then the lungs were lifted and draped over the ribs, a gruesome imitation of flight. Some accounts even say salt was rubbed into the wounds to keep the victim conscious, to make sure they felt everything. One of the most infamous victims was King Ella of Northumbria. In the year 867, he had executed the legendary Viking, Ragnar Lothbrok, by casting him into a pit of vipers. Ragnar's sons vowed revenge. They launched the great heathen army, and when they finally captured Ella, they didn't just kill him. They gave him to the eagle, and the eagle took its time. Was it real? Or just myth, passed down to frighten children? Archaeologists debate, but the sagas speak plainly, and in the minds of those who lived by blade and honor, there were fates worse than death. This was one of them. For over 4 centuries, Vikings lived in the icy wilderness of Greenland. They built farms, raised families, and even churches, far from their Nordic homeland. But sometime in the 14th century, they vanished. No bodies, no battles, just silence. When later settlers arrived, they found abandoned homes with doors left open, tables still set for meals, and tools scattered on the ground, as if dropped mid-task. It was as if the people had simply stood up and walked into the snow. What happened to them? Some believe they starved as the climate grew colder during what we now call the Little Ice Age. Others say they were driven out by Inuit tribes, or perhaps assimilated into them. But none of these theories explain the eerie stillness, or why no signs of struggle or burial were ever found. Inuit legends speak of a shadow from the mountains, a presence that came during storms and whispered in the wind, a curse brought by ships from the east. Norse records, too, mention strange signs in the sky, and a final letter sent from Greenland spoke of fear in the night. But it never reached its destination. Even today, archaeologists exploring the eastern settlement report a strange sensation, as if they are not alone. A cold weight in the air, a silence that presses in, and sometimes footprints that weren't there before. Is it just the mind playing tricks in the frozen emptiness? Or does something still linger? Where the last Vikings once stood, they came to tame the land. But perhaps the land claimed them instead. In the early 13th century, Iceland was torn apart by brutal clan wars. Among the bloodiest was a man named Gissur Thorvaldsson, a powerful chieftain, known not just for his cunning, but for ruthless ambition that chilled even his allies. Gissur had long envied another leader, Snorri Sturluson, a respected poet, historian, and noble. Snorri was not only wise but dangerously influential, and for Gissur, influence was a threat that had to be eliminated. In 1241, Gissur was given a mission: kill Snorri, on orders from the Norwegian king. But this wouldn't be a battle. It would be a quiet execution, a message written in blood. On a dark September night, Gissur and his men arrived at Snorri's estate in Reykholt. The air was cold, the house silent, lit only by torches. They broke through the doors and stormed inside. Snorri, now old and weakened, stood unarmed. "Do not strike," he said. "I am a man of words." But words didn't matter that night. Gissur's men dragged him to the ground and stabbed him to death in his own home. His final cry was said to be, "Egi skal hugva," do not strike. After Snorri's death, Gissur's power grew. He was later named Earl of Iceland by the King of Norway, a title soaked in betrayal. But the blood he spilled left a legacy of fear. Even centuries later, locals in Reykholt speak of cold spots near the old estate, of footsteps in empty halls, and of a whisper carried by the wind, "Do not strike." Prague, the heart of Bohemia, a city of towers, secrets, and blood. In the year 1610, people in the Newtown district began to whisper, not of ghosts, but of a man, and something he kept beneath his shop. Jan Kulhanek, a butcher, hard-working, quiet, polite to neighbors. But when the sun went down, no one saw him. No one heard the cleaver, only the dogs howled. Over time, people began to disappear. Children, servants, a milkmaid, always from the same streets. Always at night. The guards searched homes, nothing. Until one evening, a stonemason named Vacek followed her trail. A drop of blood, then another, then muddy footprints, leading to John's cellar. What they found inside stunned even the most hardened men. Hooks, chains, a table black with stains, and beneath it, a hole in the stone, freshly dug. Inside, the remains of 12 people, and at the center, what locals still call the Stone Child, a statue, no higher than a toddler, carved of solid granite, its face contorted in silent terror. No one knew where it came from. Jan wouldn't speak. He only stared at it. Even when taken to the gallows, he never said a word. Not a confession, not a name, only one glance back, at the prison cart that carried the stone. Some say he believed it watched him. Others claimed he spoke to it, begged it, fed it. After his execution, the Stone Child was locked in a church crypt, sealed with chains. And though the butcher is long dead, those who've seen it say its eyes still glisten, as if moist, as if it remembers and waits. France. The year is 1476, a time of kingdoms, betrayal, and vengeance dressed as justice. In the city of Verdun, Bishop Pierre d'Arcy ruled not just with scripture, but with steel. Respected by some, feared by many more, he had enemies, but none so dangerous as his own ambition. Pierre accused a rival nobleman, Lord Armand de Clairvaux, of heresy and treason. The charges were false, but the motive was clear: land, power, and silence. Armand refused to confess, even under torture, and so the bishop ordered something worse. A blacksmith was summoned. Iron was shaped into a cage, no longer than a man's body, just wide enough to fit someone curled in pain. No bedding, no room to move, no mercy. The bishop had it suspended from the tallest tower of the cathedral, on public display. There, Armand was placed inside, naked, bleeding, exposed to rain, wind, and crows. People watched. Some pitied, others jeered. He lasted 4 days. His screams became whispers. then silence. But death was not the end. For months, the bishop left the body hanging, as a warning. But in time, rumors spread, not of ghosts, but of guilt. Priests began to resign, letters reached the king, and when an envoy arrived to investigate, the bishop was gone, fled, vanished, never seen again. All that remained was the cage, rusting, twisting in the wind, a symbol not of justice, but of what happens when power forgets humanity.